Gold may glitter, but innovation glows. Today, I'm talking about why the dollar still rules the world and why you can't buy trust with gold. When it comes to power, credibility, and capital, America's innovation standard is still the real gold standard. As I sip my way through espresso number 2 each morning, you could probably find me sitting mostly in the dark at some ungodly hour, buzzsawing through piles of articles on what's going on across the global economy. Now, to be clear, I don't take in every single of the hundreds of data points that are out there because I really don't have to. Usually by article number 5 or 6, the key theme begins to emerge, and for the most part, all the data points that follow simply underscore and support the pattern. One theme that has been impossible to ignore lately is, of course, gold's rocket ride. My longtime readers know that I take a somewhat dubious view of the metal's explosive behavior. Look, I don't hate gold. I respect it. I've even participated in some of its weird undulations. But like any other investment, I need to understand why something is happening before it even gets onto my watch list. Last week, I wrote about the odd occurrence of both gold and the S&P 500 hitting all-time highs at the same time. Gold is a doomsday trade, risk off, while stocks are the complete opposite, risk on. Are folks nervous? Of course they are. There are always nerves when stocks get pricey, and yes, there's some geopolitical tension swirling around. So it makes sense that some investors would add a bit of gold as insurance just in case. But this feels a little different. Gold isn't acting like insurance anymore. It's acting like an offensive trade. Look, the big drivers of this spike aren't retail investors or fund managers. They're sovereign banks. That's where the story gets a little interesting. Foreign central banks, especially in China, Russia, and parts of the Middle East, have been quietly hoarding gold. Their story is that they are diversifying away from dollar dominance, rejecting Washington's financial authority. The irony is that they're not really diversifying. They're just swapping one dependency for another. Gold, you see, doesn't replace the dollar. It can't. Gold doesn't power economies, create liquidity, or fund trade. It just sits there, shiny and motionless, while the dollar, it moves, it trades, and it lubricates global commerce. The haters love to say that the dollar is a fiat currency, which means it's not backed by anything real. But here's the secret. The dollar is backed by something far more powerful than metal. It's backed by the world's most innovative economy, the deepest capital markets, and the strongest military force ever assembled, in case you didn't know. The dollar isn't faith-based, it's credibility-based, and that credibility is built on strength. Let's start with innovation, because that's the piece almost every foreign challenger completely underestimates. The United States remains the global epicenter of invention. It's not just patents, R&D, and venture capital. It's the ability to turn ideas into industries. Silicon Valley didn't just create tech, it created scale. American innovation is almost viral. It's fast-moving, and it's built on a system that rewards risk-taken and even welcomes failure. There's no central committee deciding what gets built, no 5-year plan to predict the next iPhone, ChatGPT, or mRNA vaccine. The system is chaotic, but that chaos, it breeds creativity. It's raw capitalism, sometimes stumbling, often overreacting, but always moving forward. And that creative chaos has built the infrastructure of the modern world. The software that runs banks, the chips that drive AI, the planes that connect continents, and the medicines that save lives all flow through the veins of American enterprise. That is the true collateral behind the dollar. When you hold dollars, you're holding a share in the world's most innovative company, and that company is the United States. Did you see the SpaceX launch yesterday? That was the 11th Starship variant that they launched. Several failed before success, and yet there it went, soaring into the stratosphere. Where else can one private citizen build something like that? That's what American capitalism looks like in motion, fast motion. Innovation isn't just about shiny tech, it's about the system that enables it. The dollar survives because US markets are open, they're deep, and they're trustworthy. If you're a pension fund in Norway or a central bank in Singapore, and you need a safe place for reserves, You don't buy Turkish lira or Russian rubles. You buy US treasuries. You do it because you can get in and out in seconds with total transparency, knowing that the rule of law, the Fed, and a centuries-old institutional framework that stands behind them. That's liquidity. That's trust. That's power. And no one does it better than the US. And behind that liquidity, there's something else that rarely gets mentioned in polite economic circles. The US military. The dollar's dominance is underwritten by the fact that the United States defends not only its own interests, but the global trade routes that allow commerce to flow. The U.S. Navy, now celebrating its 250th birthday, keeps the Strait of Hormuz open, ensures shipping lanes are safe, and contains global conflicts that could freeze trade. It's not hyperbole to say that the U.S. military keeps the global economy running, and the global economy runs on dollars. That loop, trade, trust, defense, and liquidity is what makes the system work smoothly. Critics say that the dollar power is an unfair advantage, that American influence is too dominant. But the U.S. didn't inherit dominance, it built it through openness, innovation, and the willingness to take risks that others won't. Capitalism's core strength is that it rewards action and punishes stagnation. The reason the U.S. remains the global financial anchor isn't that it's perfect, it's that it's adaptive. No other system absorbs shocks, reinvents itself, and moves forward like America's. Compare that to countries stockpiling gold. China, Russia, India, Turkey. They want to challenge the dollar, but they're challenging the symbol, not the source. You can't dethrone the dollar with shiny metal. You'd have to out-innovate the system that created it. You'd have to build an economy more trusted, more transparent, more creative than America's. No one's even come close. The United States accounts for about a quarter of global GDP, but more than half of global equity value. That gap is confidence, my friends. Investors pay a premium for exposure to capitalism. They want the dollar because it's more than a currency. It's a claim on the world's most reliable engine of growth. When you filter out the noise, that's the core of it. The dollar endures because the world still trusts America, its markets, its institutions, its ability to fix itself when it goes off the rails. That trust wasn't granted, it was earned through decades of innovation, sacrifice, and power. So when central banks hoard gold, remember, it's not a sign that the dollar is dying. It's a sign that they're worried about their own weakness. They're trying to buy what they can't create, credibility. They're building vaults because they can't build Silicon Valleys. They're trying to buy trust. In the end, gold may glitter, but innovation, it glows. The dollar's strength isn't measured in ounces. It's measured in output, in creativity, in confidence. For all the world's complaints, the world still does its business in dollars. Why? Because when push comes to shove, everyone knows the same truth. You can't buy security with gold, but you can with trust. And the dollar still delivers that. As I finish this morning's espresso, scanning yet another round of breathless de-dollarization headlines, I can't help but chuckle to myself. We've been here before. Every decade has its end of dollar story. And yet, here we are, still pricing the world in green. Gold may be an ancient standard, but the US has something better, the innovation standard. And as long as America keeps building, inventing, and defending the system that made it all possible, the dollar's reign isn't ending anytime soon. So your truth bomb for today is this. The real gold standard is innovation, and America owns the mint. Join me every day for Wall Street Truth Bombs, where I drop them here before the market figures them out. Thanks for checking in with Wall Street Truth Bombs. Remember, we drop them here before the market figures them out.